Welcome back to another episode of Global Palette, Namli's very own podcast where we explore ways of connecting people and culture through food. I'm your host, Padmini Chintakaila, and today we have a special guest who's making waves in the world of nutrition and culinary exploration. Joining us is Grace Hameister, founder and CEO of Food FiXR, a company that harnesses the power of food as medicine. Grace, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Absolutely an honor. This is going to be so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Before we delve into the fascinating work you do at Food FiXR, I just want to take a moment to really appreciate the incredible diversity that exists in the culinary world. You know that at Nomly we strive to bring ethnic food and culture to mainstream food streams and create a bridge between communities and celebrating the richness of traditions and cultures. Can you share a little bit about your thoughts on how exploring different cultures through food can foster connections and understanding?
Well, the kitchen is where everybody gets together during any holiday. No matter how many rooms that you have in your house, the kitchen is where everyone hangs out. So
Yes.
Food is what brings us together. It's that common denominator, as much as it's necessary for our biological function and our life to have food, it's also very much part of who we are regionally and globally. Culture and cultural differences and the earth in different places on the world, right? The earth is different. So you literally have to have different foods in different places, depending on if you live in, say, Norway versus in New Guinea. You're going to have different things. And so the cool thing about that, though, is it's still nourishment and it's still experienced as a human thing together. And I think that's a really powerful perspective of food. Food is
the power of food as medicine. Talk a little bit about how you got there, what your story is, and what was your process really of discovering that food could literally serve as medicine to heal minds and bodies.
Well, I had to take this back quite a few years. My first exposure to the importance of food came when I was an elite athlete. I was the first Olympic level rhythmic gymnast in our state of Wisconsin. And I earned the right and the ability to go to the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And when I was there, we had the best food I have ever had, ever in my entire life at this point in my life. And it was made by gourmet chefs, and it was still in like a cafeteria format, but I had never had flavors and variety like this. And that was so delicious. And it was brought to my attention that, the food we were eating was designed to help us repair and to have athletic peak performance. And then we had a nutrition coach that came and talked to us. And she told us that in 10 years from now, 5% of the foods we eat haven't even been invented yet.
Wow.
And that blew my mind as a kid, but you know what? It stayed with me, and it's true. Look at all the power bars now and all the juice drinks and all the different kinds of water and like all these things that didn't exist even 5-10 years ago. Right. Mm-hmm. So and I heard this information back in the 80s, so it's really stayed with me. Now, fast forward to becoming a doctor, which is what I do now. I'm a chiropractor, integrative medicine, and functional medicine doctor. So I look at how nature can heal the body before pharmaceuticals and other things. And that's where the food as medicine perspective became so important to me, because I learned what I did as a kid and used it as an athlete. But then the geeky scientist in me needed to learn about biochemistry and biology and organic chemistry and all these things that how all those little nuances of how all the different organ systems in your body works, how your neurology works, what nutrients are necessary to make your neurology work better, or your gut, what are the constituents, what are those little tiny things that that you learn in chemistry and biochemistry. And so now fast forward to me being a doctor, I actually have a trademark cleanse. I created it by piecing together bits and pieces of all these different ones that I felt were valuable, but not one of them had just all of them in one place, right? And it's become quite popular. It's called Alluvius, and I use it on quite a few of my high-profile athletes and actor friends and clients in Beverly Hills. And, you know, I was making food for most of those people because they're really busy or very wealthy and just wanted me to make it instead, right? But
Yep.
what I was really specifically brought on board to do, though, was to actually help them repair. So, for example, I had a patient who was pregnant and she had gained a lot of water weight and was very uncomfortable, big swollen ankles, the whole thing, right? So I made food for her that would help her to support her kidneys, support her liver, and to eliminate the water. And she was so much more comfortable and felt so much better. And that is the power of what food as medicine can do. You know, another patient had a stroke. She had a stroke in her 70s, and she had a lot of brain fog from it. Still was very tired. You know, her one side of her body still wasn't working great. She'd gotten physical therapy and was on the other side of it, but still wasn't right. You know, after doing my suggestions for 2 weeks, she was like almost back to normal. You know, and that's, you can't unsee that.
Right.
The power of that is so amazing to me. So I am so passionate about the fact that, you know, we have the greatest underutilized pharmacy, the biggest secret pharmacy in the world.
Right.
The grocery store.
Talk to us a little bit about, you know, how approachable food as medicine really is.
Well, I think you're exactly 100% correct. It's super approachable. Unfortunately, nobody knows how to do it. Yes. You know, there's nothing approachable about reading double-blind randomized trial studies and figuring out how to read a label and figuring out, you know, what foods you may have had growing up that were fast food, or you were, you know, were a tradition for you that actually could be quite detrimental to your body. The problem with our food system and with our grocery system is that it's not that we don't have enough food, it's that we don't have enough nutrients. Right. And we don't have enough education that's easy, that shows people what to get and how when they need to heal their body. And yes, 100%, it's the cheapest, easiest way to repair or to not get sick in the first place is to start with your food. Right. Unfortunately, you know, we're so jaded by media and by the, you know, big money companies like, you know, the like the soda companies and the big Doritos kinds of, well, Frito-Lay's kind of places that, you know, we're a commodity. Yep. We're totally. Are not, they're not making this food for us to, you know,
help us in any way.
Help. Exactly. It's not designed to be there for us for longevity. It's designed to be there for us to open our wallets and pay for it.
Right. You know? And it's short-term gains, right? Like if you're feeling down or if you're feeling like you need a sugar boost, it really caters to your short-term needs, not really your long-term longevity. Well said.
Exactly. And so that's where we're really trying to have an impact, is to give people the power of the information in the palm of their hand and have the information that's based in science, but it's easy to understand, it's easy to use, and it's easy to find. That's making it, you know, as clear as day, and then also to be able to feed your family, you know, like with recipes and all kinds of things that are going to be beneficial.
Absolutely. And you know that one of the main goals for NAMI here is really to bring ethnic food and culture to mainstream. And coming from an ethnic background, I can really tell that almost every ethnic culture that's out there uses these years and millions of years old of spices and herbs in their everyday food, not just in occasional, you know, dessert or something like that, like a meal, but in an everyday manner. And that even carries, I've noticed from visiting so many different ethnic restaurants, even into the restaurants, they still do maintain some of this authentic way of cooking, authentic way of using the herbs and spices and things like that. And that's kind of what we're really trying to bring out with NAMI, right? Like folks are so busy these days to even do things like grocery or anything like that. And meal kits have been so popular. So we thought, you know, why not bring this goodness to people's homes, you know? while also bringing the healthy ingredients inside those
Well, of course. And
people.
that's the beautiful thing about most ethnic foods is when you look regionally at the earth, right? Because that's where culture and ethnicity comes from, is just the region of the earth that you were born,
Yeah, yeah,
basically, right? Each region has its own strength, and each region has its own superfood and superpower
yeah.
superfoods, right? So being exposed to all these different, I mean, you coming from India, oh my God, you guys have one of the greatest, longest standing practices in the world, Ayurveda. And
Yeah.
so you were raised learning about these things. And this kind of takes us back to the last question a little bit too, like how
Yeah.
accessible it is. It's only as accessible as what you know.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's the beautiful thing about having more exposure to more ethnic foods. You learn about, superfoods. I just learned about a new one from, I think, God, I think it was Costa Rica that it's from, but it's actually it looks like a lime, but it sweetens your drink when you put
Mm-hmm.
it when you juice it or put it in a smoothie,
Sure.
and it has high doses of iron, high doses of protein, and
Wow.
high doses of B complex, and it tastes like maple syrup. I'm like,
Wow.
how cool is that?
That's
Like there's
pretty
just
cool.
having the exposure to all these different kinds of diverse foods. That's what makes
Right.
your body just explode into its
Mhm.
optimal health status, because that
Absolutely.
diversity gives you those things, and the diversity in the cultural choices just will bring us together and understanding better too, because you're learning about the culture through the food.
From where I come, the southeast part of India, people have grown up eating the first part of a meal to be a lentil rice. Okay, so we what we have is called a thali, and the first thing you eat in the thali is your lentil soup and rice. So what is it? Is just cooked lentils, steamed rice, and ghee, right? So that's like the first thing you eat when you start eating your thali. And I've grown up that way. My mom has grown up that way. My grandparents grew up that way. Even my kids here grew up that way. And literally, just figuratively, just no later than a few months ago, I had a light bulb moment. Like, what exactly is this thing, right? Like, dal is a protein with some carb, and steamed rice is a carb, and then we have the ghee for fat. So
Yes.
it's literally we have the portions all figured out, and that's literally the first thing people have been eating for centuries. And the first thing when we eat the protein, right, it starts the digestion naturally, slowly, and helps you to eat
Yes.
in a more balanced way,
And it's
right?
a plant-based
And
protein, so
it's
that's
plant-based.
actually like even more um, uh, soothing for your gut as well.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And all along, I grew up eating this whole thing, not even realizing that it is something that has now being marketed as, oh, this is like the cool new way to eat. But I'm like, no,
I
I
know.
guess people have been doing this for centuries now.
Exactly. I've got two things with that. Like, one, first of all, thank God you do come from a culture that the tradition actually is nutrition, right?
Mhm.
So I say this to people all the time. Are you eating for tradition, or are you eating for nutrition? Because some traditions, like especially here in the West, our tradition is fast food and quickly made things, and kids at especially latchkey kids and single family homes where there's only a single parent, it tends to have the worst eating habits because it's just as
Right.
fast as possible and as cheap as possible, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
But the thing is, it doesn't have to be fast food and like really crappy food
Right.
when
Yeah.
you're making things. So I love the fact that your tradition actually is nutrition too. That's awesome. That's very, very cool. And I also love the fact that to go to your previous point about um, the kinds of uh, unknown surprises that
Mhm.
you come to realize through the ethnic foods. All those herbs that you're using, like the curcumin and the turmeric and the garlics and the ghee. That's actually a prebiotic, and as well
Yeah.
as probiotics too. And so it's so fantastic when you actually can have the mergence of
Yes.
tradition and nutrition, and that's where you definitely have an advantage there for sure.